And, I'm going to share a bit of my story this morning from kind of my journey battling with bipolar. And I'm going to share a little bit about my son's story. He's pictured behind me there. I put a backdrop on today. That's my 19-year-old boy. I thought it was appropriate. Big smile. He's a big bear. My nickname for him is Bear, because he's just got this big chuckle about him. And, I've been battling bipolar one disorder now for 26 years. I was diagnosed shortly after I think I was 24 years old. I turned 50 this year. And I think that the biggest thing that I've learned on the whole journey is that, I know who I am now. And I don't know if that might make sense to you, but, I think a lot of times as men, like I'll give you a little bit about my professional background. I've been in professional sales for 15 years. I work for a very big company here in Calgary. You might even heard of it. The name of the company is called Ainsworth Inc. We're one of the biggest multi-trade services companies here in Calgary, and I'm on the sales side. And the thing about it is there's lots of stress, but I think the biggest thing is that I don't have to feel ashamed, because I think a lot of times as men, and I've realized this along my journey, is that in the beginning, I just thought it was shameful. Oh my God, I can't tell anyone. I can't share my story. Like, who do I tell? What are they going to think of me at work? Like, what if I tell somebody? Oh my gosh, like all these things of doubt. And I've just realized that my mental illness, my bipolar doesn't define me. Because there's lots of cases you can read it where, a lot of people, they just can't be in a professional role because it shuts them down. And I just challenge that, because I'm like, no, it doesn't define me. I can do great things. I can be great. So that was probably the biggest thing that I just kept pushing through. I'll share with you some personal stuff. I meet with a psychologist. Connie knows this. I meet with him monthly. And it's just to kind of keep me in check. And it's not that I'm like, going crazy, but I bounce, he asked me, how's life going? Life is crazy right now. COVID, I got 4 kids, so it keeps me in check. It just keeps me grounded. So that's a little bit kind of, professionally who I am, doing very well at my job. And, I'm going to dive into my story. Connie always says, just hop in. So here I'm going to tell you a bit about my story, how I first kind of reached out for help. So, I clearly remember it, and I ask myself this question every day. I ask myself a question: do I stay in bed today, or do I get up and be productive? And I struggle with that question. Let me tell you, I struggle with it every single day. But when I ask myself that question, I get up, I whip the covers off, and I jump on the ground, and I push forward. And you know what? It was very early on. I'll never forget it. When I was first diagnosed, I was on 11 different kinds of medication. 11. And I can't even begin to tell you what my body was going through, but what I clearly remember is they'd give me one pill, and then I'd kind of have a reaction. Like, oh, we got to give you another pill because that's got to counteract that one. And oh yeah, well, that one there, you need to have another pill. So at the end of the day, I was taking 11 different kinds of medication to try to manage and figure out my bipolar. And during that time, I'll never forget my mom. See, my mom would rub my hands every night so I could hold a knife and a fork to eat my supper. Might even get emotional here, but just part of my story is, see, I just didn't have the strength in my body because all these medications were just beating me up inside. So there my mom would rub my hands so I could have my supper. And at that time, the reason she had to do that is, see, I didn't have the energy. I could not get out of bed in the morning. I wanted to get up and be productive and have a full-time job. And I just didn't have it in my body. So my dad knew the owner of a turbo gas station. Who's the man here that remember turbo gas stations? We had one up the street from my house, and my dad knew the owner. And the crazy thing is, I remember that guy's name. That guy's name was Reg. And I've never ran into him since. But Dad and I walked up the street, and he's like, hey, Reg, hey, can we talk to you? And he's like, sure. So we kind of sat down and started to tell him my story and a little bit what was going on in my life. And Dad says, hey, he just can't get up in the morning. He can't work the morning shift. And he probably can't even start at noon. We're hoping maybe you could find something for him. And Reg reached out and said, absolutely. So Reg gave me a job at that turbo from 4 to 8 p.m. every day. because that's all I had in me. And you know what? It was an amazing thing. I'll never forget it when I reached out and Reg gave me that opportunity. And, you know, I have a mantra that I live by. It's on my personal phone. It's on my work phone. And it basically reads, it's by Rob Frost. And it's basically, the only way out is through. Because when I get up every day, if I just don't push through, you know what, it just affects everyone in our household, obviously, but it affects me. So, you know what, if I could share with you, you know, from pushing through with my mental illness is that you just got to push through the tough times. I mean, COVID is crazy right now. I was in the office the other day and they're going to lock our office down again. Like all the staff are rotating now. Our guys are going back to a 4-day work week. Like it's taking its toll on everyone. And I think, you know, you just got to push through those tough times because, you know, it's okay not to be okay. Like I think if you hear that, it's okay not to be okay. Because sometimes you're going to have a bad day and it's okay. But you got to get up the next day and show up. And that's what I do for my son is I show up for my son. And I'm going to kind of lead into that now is that, you know, Connie asked me to share a bit about my personal story and then, you know, what I see in boys today and what they need. And you know what, that really touched me because, you know what, my boy there, you see him in the background, he's 19. He, around grade 11, he started to come into some stress and got diagnosed with some high anxiety and depression. And it was because of a death, a very close death in our family. And it just took him into a spiral. And you know what, I made some notes here, but he missed, I'll put in perspective for you. So in grade 11, he missed 186 days of 226 days of school. He's barely, like, couldn't even, like, get out of bed to go. And it brought back a lot of those things that I dealt with, you know, like, I'd ask him, hey, you got to get up. And he's like, not going. So I'm like, okay, next day. Okay, you got to get to school. Not going. And I'll never forget when I got a call from the school. So I'll share it to the school because you know, we went to Henry Westwood High School here in Calgary. My wife went there, you know, so that's where our kids go. And the guidance office called me. Mr. McWhinney, this is, I can't remember the guy's name. It's like, it's the Henry Westwood Guidance Department. And we need to schedule a meeting with you and your wife, Nicole, to talk about an attendance improvement plan for your son, Liam, because he missed, you know, 186 days of school. They didn't ask once, like, is there anything that's going on with him? Is he doing anything? You guys doing anything? It was like their first thing out of their mouth to me was like, we need to talk about an attendance improvement plan. So we went to this meeting. And you know what? We sat down and they started to tell us like all stuff. Hey, he missed all this time. Like, great. And at the end of the day, here's what they suggested. This is a true fact. It's not any, I mean, they're dealing with all they're dealing with. And it's not a slight against a teacher. It's not a slight against the system, but it's all they could offer. Here's what they told us. Said, well, you know what, you know, Liam's had a rough year, so here's what we suggest. We suggest Liam probably just, you know, maybe take the rest of the year off, quit school, take some time off, and maybe look at getting a part-time job and maybe try coming back next year in grade 12. That was their answer. And Nicole and I were just livid. I mean, I looked at that guidance counselor. I said, is that all you got? I said, you know, Nicole and I are both of the stance. We're huge advocates for our son. And we just said, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. If that's the best you got, I'm fighting this. And trust me, we dug our heels in. And I think, you know, little side note, that guidance counselor was no longer there shortly after that, if you get where I'm going. We made a pretty big deal about it. Because said, if that's all you guys can offer, you need to do better. And you know what? I think what boys need today is, you know, I love what Dr. Wayne said. I have it in my notes. It's like he kind of stole my notes, is that, you know, boys, I think today need a role model. They need a mentor. They need someone to show them that it's going to be okay. You know, they need someone to listen to them. You know, they need someone to tell them that they are going to be okay and they'll get through it. And that's kind of what we eventually found for Liam. See, Liam's big passion, he wanted to play professional football. And I love what Dr. Wayne said. You got to try to connect with the kids on their level. Every Saturday, we watch college football, and we have for probably the last 5-6 years. Because Liam wanted to go to university and be a professional ball player. He had 6 universities looking at him. And the thing was he didn't have the grades. All his buddies are playing ball. He's got one of his best friends playing at St. XF, D lineman. Another one's two are actually up at U of A. Two more just got drafted and signed with Western this last weekend. But that's what we do. We connect watching college football. And it's just to kind of get on his level, to let him know it's going to be okay. And we found that mentor, I guess, a role model for Liam in Coach Pilley. See, Coach Pilley was Liam's math teacher in grade 11, but he was also his offensive lineman coach. And after that disastrous year in grade 11, Coach Pilley would phone us at home. He'd phone Liam, hey, can I talk to Liam? Yeah, for sure. And he'd check in on him. Hey, how you doing, bud? Just checking in on you. Haven't forgot about you. And this is like after the grade 11 write-off, like the whole 186 days missed. And he'd say, hey, just checking on you. Just want to make sure you're okay. And that spring, for spring ball, he reached out to Liam and said, Liam, I'd like you to come try out for senior ball. And Liam's like, not happening. And he's like, Liam, you are a great offensive lineman, and you would be awesome on our team. We need you. And he's like, wow. Well, that little hook there for Liam got Liam back to school for grade 12. Like after missing 186 days of school, they said, quit. You know what, throw in the towel, get a full-time job. You know, the coach reached out, Coach Pilley, his math teacher, and said, just come play ball. We'll figure out the rest, is kind of what he said. So Liam got back to school, you know what, finished that year, which was amazing. I mean, was it great? No, because he missed 186 days, but that's not the point. The point is that he actually was back at school, which was just like our biggest victory, because that's what Nicole and I wanted. Like, we were not giving up on that. Like, that was our first and foremost biggest reason to like advocate for him. And then he got to play ball. And the great thing about that is they won the senior championship. They won the city championship, had an amazing year. And, you know, he was kind of back in his groove, you know, so he's kind of taking some classes now at Alternative High, looking to finish it off. And he wants to become a refrigeration mechanic. He kind of found his path because he said, Dad, it looks like I'm not playing ball at university, but I don't know if I want to go to university. So he's going to be a refrigeration mechanic. He's finishing that up. He'll be going to SAIT here in January, February in the apprenticeship trades program, because he just realized his value, like Dr. Wayne said, that, hey, you know what? Well, if it's not university, there's got to be something else for me. And he kind of found that by himself. So that's a pretty big, amazing win there. You know, so I guess with, you know, I think like Liam, every boy just needs that mentor. He just needs that person to believe in them. I see it a lot today, and a lot of Liam's friends, they come over and, you know what, Nicole and I have been married for 20 years this year, September, and all the boys come to our house. And I don't know if it's a trend, but a lot of them don't have dads. And one of Liam's close friends, that's the boy that's going to U of A. His name's Steve. And I know his dad super well. They're divorced. But he spends more time at my house than he does at Dad's house when he's in town. Like, he was here all last week, and what we do? We watch football. We watch football, college football all day Saturday, and NFL on the Zone on Sunday. Nicole made snacks and treats. It was awesome. And he was here for reading week. So I think sometimes you just got to, you know, like Dr. Wayne said, you got to reach out to them in maybe a different way. You got to kind of connect with them. And we didn't say a lot during the day on Saturday and Sunday, but it's just being present, like Dr. Wayne said, you know. And, you know, something would come up, we talk, and then be quiet. They're both on their phones. I mean, it's just amazing how you find something that they like. So I guess, you know, just like Liam, to end here, boys today need that role model, a mentor who believe in them, and someone that would guide them on through these tough times.